thank you for volunteering for 4th grade days. So a brief overview of how the event will go is the day of or the day before your visit, you can come to the SWE office and pick up your bag of supplies. And then the day of your visit, you sign up for a time slot, and that time slot includes driving, but you may want to leave a couple minutes before it says on your time slot so you can get to the event, find enough parking, go to the office, check in, things like that. Just things that might add extra time. And then we'll go in detail over how the visit will go, and then you go back and go to class, and then you'll return extra supplies like scissors, tape, and your survey to the SWE office, hopefully within the next day or two if you can. Once you come to the SWE office, there will be a bunch of brown paper bags like this. They'll have the name of the teacher on it, the time slot you signed up for, and then underneath it's the time that you'll actually be in the classroom. So you have to make sure you come at this time and leave by this time. And they'll be organized by day that you're visiting, so there'll be a set for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and so on. There'll also be a schedule posted in case you forget what time slot you signed up for. So now you've arrived at your school site and you're going to start your 1-hour visit. So I'm going to give you a brief list of things that you're going to be doing while you're there, like a schedule, and then I'll go over each item individually in a little bit more detail. So first, you're going to briefly introduce yourself, and then I have a pre-survey that I want everyone to take, and then you're going to talk about engineering and the different types of engineering, and then you're going to describe the activity in a little bit of detail and talk about the rules, and then we're going to talk about the physics behind the activity and the science background. So we're going to teach them a little bit, and then it's time for the actual activity itself. After the activity, you're going to go around and you test all of the different children's prototypes. Then you're going to conduct a post-survey. And finally, you're going to discuss what they learned, what they liked, what they didn't like. So when you first get there, you'll introduce yourself, say your name, your major, where you're from if you want, what you do outside of school, maybe some clubs you're in, whatever you think the kids would be interested in. One of the reasons for this program is to get rid of some of the negative stereotypes about engineering, so show them that you're normal people, it's not just big nerds that do engineering. Then afterwards, before you start teaching them anything, I want you to fill out a pre-survey, so basically just have close their eyes, put their heads on the desk, and then ask them these questions. So like the first one, raise your hand if you think you know what an engineer is, count the number of people with their hands up, have them all put their hands down, and then do the next question. So on. There's only 5 of them. This really shouldn't take you very long. I don't want it to be a cumbersome activity. After the pre-survey, you're going to teach them a little bit about engineering and then about different types of engineers. So how I like to do this is normally discussion style, because if it's a lecture, they don't normally hold their attention for very long. So ask them if any of them has a guess what an engineer is, what kind of things they do. So sometimes you'll get classes that everybody wants to raise their hand and volunteer, sometimes you won't. Just kind of play with it, and then try and give them your best description of an engineer. Talk about designing, testing, building, redesigning, all the good qualities you guys know. After that, try and ask them if they know any types of engineers. Sometimes you'll get classes that like their parents are engineers or like they know different types. That's awesome. Sometimes you won't get anybody that raises their hand. So then I move on to asking, what do you think an engineer makes? So a lot of times they'll come up with things like cars, and they'll be like, oh great, very good, that's the mechanical engineer that makes cars. Or buildings, that's a civil engineer. There'll be a packet in your bag, and there'll be a list on there of different types of engineers and things they make that can help you if you get stuck. So after you ask them the questions, you have a little bit of a discussion. Make sure that you've given them a halfway decent idea of what an engineer is, and then maybe go over any types of engineering you didn't talk about that could be important. So the activity is basically like a crash landing for astronauts. These are your 2 astronauts. This is their spaceship. So they go inside the cup, and if you drop them, we drop them from about 4.5 feet, they'll bounce out. And so the kids have to design a system either with shocks or with parachutes or anything that could try and keep their astronauts in the cup or in the spaceship. but there are some definite rules to go over, like don't have a system that covers the cup, or don't like stick your marshmallows together and attach them to the cup. For other questionable like designs, use your best judgment. If it seems like it's cheating, it probably is. So now that you've described the activity, it's time to teach them a little bit about the science principles behind it. So the two principles I want you to talk about are force and impulse. So they'll probably get the idea of force pretty easy. It's basically how hard you're pushing on something. Impulse is a little bit trickier. It's force times the amount of time that you're interacting with it. So the two examples that I would really like you to use is one, talk about a car. If you're going 45 miles an hour and you slowly slow down to a red light, you're not really going to feel it on your body. But if you are going 45 miles an hour and then you slam on the brakes, it might hurt. You're going to feel it, so it's more of an impact. And then the second one is to get them a little bit engaged and involved. Have them hold out their hands and basically give themselves either a big clap or a big high five, and you can tell it kind of hurts. Have them do it again, except this time really slowly. They push just as hard, but it doesn't hurt the same way. So these will help them try and get the idea of impulse. So in your brown paper bag, you will find these supplies. You'll divide the children into groups of 4 or 5 if you have to, and give them each a bag of supplies, which include 4 straws, 10 toothpicks, 10 mini marshmallows, 2 popsicle sticks, a piece of string, a piece of construction paper, and the plastic bag itself. This will be what they'll have to build with. You'll also give them a rocket ship or cardboard with a cup on it. Don't give them the big marshmallows yet. You'll need those for later, and there's a good chance they'll eat them or get them sticky or smush them or something. So once they're in groups, you'll give them the supplies, tell them to talk about it, maybe ask them to draw out their ideas. They'll have about 15 to 20 minutes to actually design and test. So the principles that you'll be using is design, build, test, redesign. And then as they're doing this, walk around, talk to them about their ideas, talk about what they're building, what's working, what's not working. Try and find some good engineering principles that each design's using. So after the 15 or 20 minute time limit you give them, have everybody stop, no more working on it, and then you go around to, everybody watches, and you go around to each group and you test it. So you hold it up about 4.5 feet off the ground or so, and then drop it and see if the marshmallows bounce out. Try and be really positive about everybody's designs, whether it works or whether it doesn't work. Try and find some good principles in there and just make them feel happy and good about their project. So now it's time for the post-survey after you finish all the testing. It's the same procedure as the pre-survey. Have them put their heads down, close their eyes, read the questions, count how many people raise their hand for each question. So now that you're done with your post-survey, you're going to be discussing the activity with the students, talk about, have them tell you what they liked, what they didn't like, what worked well, what they learned, what didn't work so well, anything related to the activity, and then you can open it up for questions for you. So either about engineering, about college, about anything that they might find interesting to learn from you while you're there. And then once you're done, thank the teacher for having you and sign out at the office, and then come back to campus. So when you come back to campus, hopefully you can return those supplies to the SWE office right away. If not, please return them within the next couple days so they can go out with other groups. Also, make sure to return the post and pre-surveys.